and welcome to another edition of Diplomatic Channel. I'm Amarachi Ubani. This week, more from the U.S. President Donald Trump as he demands the Strait of Hormuz be opened. Well, President Trump has been ranting all week at NATO, at the UK, at China. He still believes the U.S. is winning the war and that Iran wants to negotiate. And nothing is certain at this point. My colleague Maria Bird had a chat with the executive chairman of the Institute of Economics and Peace on the war in Iran in response to President Trump's address to the American people on Wednesday. Later in the program is my exclusive interview with Switzerland's new Consul General in Lagos, Cornelia Kamenzend. Nigeria happens to be her last post in nearly 40 years in the Swiss Foreign Service. We get her perception on Swiss relations with Nigeria, her experience as a diplomat, and we get a crash course on how Switzerland, a landlocked politically neutral country in the central of Europe, has survived 730 years with different languages and cultures. That's Diplomatic Channel in a wrap. Let's check in on those other discussions in diplomatic circles, and we'll be right back.
Oman says it has met with Iran to discuss options for ensuring the smooth flow of transit through the Strait of Hormuz. It says experts from both sides presented a number of visions and proposals at the meeting, and it will now study these proposals. Meanwhile, the United Arab Emirates presidential advisor Anwar Gargash says it is ready to join any American-led effort to secure navigation in the strait, adding that he believes Iran's targeting of its neighbors throughout the war has only solidified the U.S. and Israel's positions and influence in the Middle East. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu congratulated the U.S. president on Sunday on what he called the incredible rescue of a U.S. airman after an F-15E was downed over Iranian territory. The rescue followed the downing of a U.S. F-15E Eagle by Iranian forces on Friday, one of the first known losses of an American crewed jet over Iran in the ongoing Middle East conflict. President Trump had described the operation as one of the most daring search and rescue operations in U.S. history.
Congratulations, President Trump. All Israelis rejoice in the incredible rescue of a brave American pilot by America's dauntless warriors. This proves that when free societies muster their courage and their resolve, they can confront seemingly insurmountable odds and overcome the forces of darkness and terror. This rescue operation reinforces a sacred principle. No one is left behind. This is a shared value demonstrated time and time again in the history of both our countries. As a nation that repeatedly carried out daring rescue operations, and as someone who was wounded in such a mission and lost a brother in the Entebbe rescue, Israelis and I, we know what a bold decision you took. President Trump, Donald, my dear friend, once again, your decisive leadership brought another great victory to America. I salute you. We all do.
Thousands of people in the Iraqi capital, Baghdad, have rallied to condemn the U.S.-Israeli attacks on Iran in response to a call by Shiite National Movement leader Muqtada al-Sadr. Massive crowds rallied with flags and chanted slogans against the United States and Israel. In a statement issued last Monday, al-Sadr had urged the public to take to the streets to condemn the Zionist American aggression and advocate for peace in the region.
The U.S. President Donald Trump on Sunday issued an expletive-laden threat against Iran's infrastructure if the Strait of Hormuz is not opened. His statement is published on his Truth Social handle. In the post, he references targeting civilian infrastructure and tells Iran they will be living in hell if the vital shipping line is not opened. It came ahead of Trump's self-imposed deadline to Tehran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz by Monday. The strait has been closed since war broke out at the end of February. Then it goes on to mention some expletives, not language you'd expect from the president of a sovereign nation, and language we cannot publish here. But the Strait of Hormuz is a key trade route for about 20% of the world's oil. About 3,000 ships usually sail through the strait each month. This is dramatically reduced, with Iran threatening to attack tankers and other ships. And 1/3 of the world's fertilizer trade also passes through the Strait of Hormuz. It's a vital channel for imports to the Middle East, including food, medicines, and technological supplies. The effective blockade of the strait has caused energy prices to hike. Iran has responded to President Trump's threats, saying the Strait of Hormuz will be reopened when a portion of transit tolls is used to compensate for all the damage caused by the war. An aide to the Iranian president's office, Mahdi Tabataei, says the U.S. president has instigated a full-scale war in the region and is still issuing threats. He says the U.S. president's insults and nonsense are born of sheer desperation and anger. Well, during the week, the U.S. president addressed Americans on the war in Iran, claiming that never in the history of warfare has an enemy suffered such clear devastating losses.
Tonight, Iran's navy is gone. Their air force is in ruins. Their leaders, most of them, terrorist regime they led, are now dead. Their command and control of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is being decimated as we speak. Their ability to launch missiles and drones is dramatically curtailed, and their weapons, factories, and rocket launchers are being blown to pieces. Very few of them left. Never in the history of warfare has an enemy suffered such clear and devastating large-scale losses in a matter of weeks.
Trump claimed that the core strategic objectives in Iran were nearing completion. He also praised the American armed forces, saying that they have been extraordinary. They're systematically dismantling the regime's ability to threaten America or project power outside of their borders, eliminating Iran's navy, which he claims is now absolutely destroyed. Well, Trump also told the U.S. and the world that this war in Iran was a true investment in their children and that Iran was no longer the bully of the region.
They were the bully of the Middle East, but they're the bully no longer. This is a true investment in your children and your grandchildren's future. The whole world is watching, and they can't leave the power, strength, and brilliance. They just can't believe what they're seeing. They leave it to your imagination, but they can't believe what they're seeing, the brilliance of the United States military.
My colleague Maria Bird spoke with the executive director of Institute of Economics and Peace, Steve Kilela, on the global response to the war and the U.S. president's position.
Steve Killalay, the Executive Director for the Institute for Economics and Peace. We thank you so much for joining us. It's quite a time across the world as we think of the geopolitical climate with the war between Iran, Israel, and the United States. We know the U.S. president has been very vocal as it relates to the war, and he will continue to be, and people are awaiting comments from him. Can you give us a little insight into kind of what the Institute's stance is on a potential peace deal and if there will be any escalations in the conflict?
Well, I think crystal balling this one is very, very difficult for anyone. But I think what we can see is for economics and peace, unless we can get a peace agreement there, it has the potential to really spiral out of control. There's a lot of things people don't realise. So if you're looking at Iran, it launched 157 attacks throughout the world, terrorist attacks in the last 3 years. When we also come over to other countries, let's say like Iraq, for example, there are 67 militias which are actually aligned with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, and you've got 119 members of parliament which are loyal to the Iranian government as well. And so that's just one issue. So if we're looking at Iran also, it's got 3 different areas where it's had terrorist attacks in the last few years. One is the Baloch, which is down on the southern end on the border of Pakistan, which had more terrorism last year than any country in the world. The Kurds, which have been in the news, but also Azerbaijan, like 2 of the northern provinces of Iran are called Azerbaijan East, Azerbaijan West. Azerbaijan itself is very close with the Israeli government. In fact, they ship most of Israel's oil from there. And that has the potential to destabilise further. So I think that's just some of the things which a lot of people aren't really aware of. Then obviously you've got the Houthis, which are now looking at the Gate of Tears, looking at trying to shut that down as well. So without peace agreement, which is comprehensive enough to get the Strait open again, I think the global economy will be in really bad shape. So the question is, can he get can we actually get a peace agreement which will get the Straits open again? And a lot of it will depend on Israel. And so will Israel actually honour the agreement? Because we can see the ceasefires they've done with the Hamas in Gaza, or they've done with Hezbollah in Lebanon. They've then gone ahead and broken those agreements after a period of time.
You know, you mentioned the Strait of Hormuz, and we know that has been the focal point of discussion for the U.S. president over the last week. We also note that there potentially could be escalations if we don't see the strait opening because of some of the constraints around oil and access to oil. Give us some insight as to if there was an escalation and we saw additional strikes, and we know that civilian bombing is something that everyone wants to try to avoid. What could we see politically across the world if there was an escalation of that sort?
I think if you saw an escalation at that time, what you're likely to see is stagnation inflation in many countries around the world. The world's got very, very high levels of debt at the moment. So many countries, like look at African countries, Latin American countries, for example, if interest rates were to go up exceedingly, those countries now will be able to struggle to repay the interest on their sovereign debts. So that's a whole new set of issues off, which we're not actually seeing today. You're going to end up with the much larger unemployment in most of the Western countries, and also the Asian countries as well. That could lead to a more civil strife within those countries. That would include the US as well. And so the ramifications and the effects which go on are very, very hard to actually fully predict, but there are a lot of them, and that's just a couple which we can see. One point I'd like to make is if we look at the global peace, so we put out a product called the Global Peace Index each year, and so what's seen as peace has deteriorated for the last 14 years straight, and the outcome, even if this war is concluded, the outcome for peace globally is not good. There's a lot of the constraints we've had in the past, like the recognition of country borders, the non-assassination of the heads of state. Those days now are in the past.
Well, Steve, we thank you so much. We would love to have you back. I don't know if this story is going to be ending in as soon of a future as we thought. So we definitely will be calling you again, but thank you for your time.
Still ahead, my exclusive interview with the Swiss Consul General to Lagos, Cornelia Commenzend. Stay with us. Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us. Now, did you know that Switzerland has 4 official languages: German, French, Italian, and Romansh, which have a prominent place in the country's culture and existence? According to Consul General Commenzend, diversity in language and culture has made Switzerland more open to immigrants, whom they respect. Meanwhile, it's a great place to visit if you love the stunning Alps and high standard of living. Here's more from Consul General Cornelia Commenzend. Well, Consul General Cornelia Commenzend, thank you for speaking with me. Pretty interesting name, as you know, the moderator said inside there. What part of Switzerland are you from? And you know, for a country that speaks so many languages, which is your favorite?
Well, I don't have a favorite per se because I'm a Swiss diplomat, so I prefer all languages spoken in Switzerland. And where do I come from? I'm coming from the German-speaking, Swiss German-speaking part. And thank you for commenting on my name, which is a very old traditional name, being molded 650 years ago in my little village in central part of Switzerland. So the name has been around for a long, long time and has been associated with my little village since good 650 years. So it's an old name.
And what is your village best known for?
We used to be a little bit of a rebel town and village. We didn't belong to Switzerland for many, many years. We were even an old free republic for many, many decades and centuries, but have been part of Switzerland for the last 150, 200 years. So That is what one part we're well known for, and the other part was that we were one of the first tourist towns, actually. We even had Queen Victoria several hundred years visiting and staying at our region, because the region is central part of Switzerland, between Mount Rigi, which is extremely well known, and Lake Lucerne. So the village is right at the lake. So it's in a beautiful, pristine environment, combining mountains and waters at once.
We're having this conversation in a month that is International Women's Month. Just a couple of weeks ago, we celebrated International Women's Day, and thankfully I'm meeting probably the first Swiss Consul General to Lagos, maybe in a very long time, but I haven't met one. It is a pretty unique position that you occupy, and at this time, do you feel that there is, a significance to this happening at a time like this?
You're right, I'm the first female Swiss Consul General in Nigeria. There were 3 male Consul Generals before. And that pretty much reflects also the percentage of female Consul Generals and ambassadors in the Swiss Foreign Service, which is about a fourth to a third of the core are now in this leading position as Consul Generals or ambassadors. Going up, steadily. So for this, yes, I'm the first one. We try to have more, and we get more. It's always a bit of a challenge, of course, to keep female diplomats in the core. Often they leave us for family reasons, but also, luckily, this is happening less and less, and there is more and more equivalence there. In the core, we have pretty much an equal numbers now of 50% female and male. The higher up, because it still is a little bit a bit of a discrepancy, but it's getting there, and we're getting better, and we're getting more represented. So having also March 8 as the as you mentioned, the International Women's Day, and the Francophonie at the same time, it's quite significant. So we're very happy about that.
Is there just as much representation in government, in the parliament, as there is in the foreign service?
I could not give you on top of my head the percentage there, but it's I think it's throughout the foreign service, throughout the public service and national and national service as well. It's about the same, maybe a bit higher, I could imagine. Nowadays, but I wouldn't really know on top of my head. I would say it's probably pretty much equal, probably a bit closer to 40%, 45% representation.
So Switzerland speaks at least 4 languages. I know it's more than that, but then you have a Francophonie Day when you celebrate all French speakers in Switzerland and all parts of the world. I mean, you said you didn't have a favorite language, but you were here celebrating French.
So we have 4 national languages and 4 official languages. The largest part is German speaking, and German speaking, to understand that there is the proper German, and we in Switzerland, we speak Swiss German. There is no written Swiss German. My brother writes his WhatsApp differently than I do. There is no written Swiss German. We write it phonetically. And German is our main language that we are taught in class, but we always talk Swiss German to each other. What's the difference? So if I speak to a German in German, he understands me. If I speak with my brother, Swiss German, a German from the north of Germany has no understanding of what I'm saying. A German close to the Swiss border will understand what I say, because it's a bit of a fluent transition. They have a different language, a different accent. It's more like an accent. So a northern German person or one from Vienna, Austria, will not understand what I say in Swiss German. But the one from Bregenz or from Konstanz, right at the border of Switzerland, they will understand. We speak with each other in Swiss German. So that's what it is. There is a totally different language between Swiss German and German. So we are about 61% speaking German. Then we have 23% speaking French. This is the language we are here today representing Switzerland. It's 23% is still a couple of million people that speak it in Switzerland and call it their langue maternelle, their mother tongue. And then we have about 8-9% speaking Italian. It's mostly the Canton Ticino that is Italian speakers. And then we have a very, very small percentage of native speaker of Romansh. And Romansh is an old stock language, something between, I want to say, Latin and Italian, and a whole part of words that is very unique to the Romansh language. And there we even have about 4 or 5 languages within. But we, about 40 years ago, as a Swiss government, started to really make sure that Romansh is not being lost, and it is now taught again. And it is now taught and spoken also in the families again, whereas 50 years ago it was about to disappear. So we're quite proud that this has happened and that we can actually maintain this language, which is spoken by a very small group of people only, that they continue talking and speaking and writing about it. But today is about Francophonie and the French language.
Yeah, and I wanted to understand that because, I mean, if it's not a major language in Switzerland, why do you join the celebrations? How significant is it for you in Switzerland to celebrate La Francophonie?
It is still every 4th person in Switzerland that has this language as their mother tongue. So that in itself is a significance to celebrate. It's part of our culture. It's part of our heritage. We are used of being multicultural. For me, it's normal to switch between. My Italian is fairly poorly, which is difficult to say, as I have half of my heritage is also Italian, but they never spoke Italian at home. Mm-hmm. But so for me, speaking a language is part of culture, is part of being Swiss. This is the way it is. Let me explain to you how it works when in the Swiss Foreign Service or in the Swiss government, not just the Foreign Service, but in the Swiss government, we have a meeting. I will speak in German. You might be Francophone. You will speak in French. And we might have an Italian speaker there. And we speak all 3 languages in the same meeting.
And you would all understand each other.
Yeah. Everybody would speak and in their own mother tongue if they're not comfortable speaking another language. And we will understand. We will have conversation for hours like that in 2 or 3 languages. And that's the way it is in the Swiss government. Maybe not in private companies, but in the Swiss government, it is like that. In particular, between French and German is happening every time, all the time. And it's absolutely normal for us. Bit shocking for people who first time enter the Swiss governmental system and come to a meeting and say, whoa, what's happening here? They're speaking 3 languages at the same time. Yes. And it is expected of us that we speak at least 2 languages fluent when you work for the Swiss government.
Do you find that this diversity has helped to unify the country? People accepting their nativeness, accepting their mother tongue, accepting who they are, their ethnicities and so on. There are no distinctions. There's just acceptance.
I think it's really part of us and how we grew as a country. You know, we grew from 2 original cantons, which my canton I grew up in is one of it. And there were 3 Germanic-speaking, Swiss German-speaking cantons. And from there it grew. It grew into all directions. And that also meant that we had French-speaking cantons joining us. So this diversity is part of our DNA. We don't know it any different. We've always had.
Speaking of the culture, I'm sure you have had a little bit of everything. So let's talk about the food, because that's what everyone wants to know. What has been your favorite so far? What has been most surprising to you?
I like spicy food, so that's quite fine with me. I'm very, very good of it. I like, I must say, I like my plantains.
It's sweet.
It's sweet, but I like them not also the chip plantains, but I prefer them actually when they come straight out of the oven and they are served warm. So that's one of my favorite. I could eat them basically all day long as a snack. I like the jollof rice, of course, and all the meat flavored chicken and beef skewers. There's suya, exactly. Thank you very much. So these are my favorite ones. The yams is also very nice. We don't get that in Switzerland or in the rest of Europe usually. So these are my favorite things. And anything that is seafood, I find fantastic, fabulous. Yeah. And where better can you get it than right at the seaside? You know,
yeah,
so
definitely.
Lagos is the place to be for seafood.
Well, we'll check back with you in a few months and see how much you're still loving Lagos, because I'm sure you will still be. Consul General, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching Diplomatic Channel. I'm Amarachi Ubani. I'll see you next time.